The prison control room was silent. Red warning lights flashed across the walls. A security alarm screamed through the building. Every guard inside Blackstone Prison was running towards cell block D. But one guard was not running to stop the problem. He was the problem. Guard Michael Carter stood alone in a dark hallway. His hands shook as he held a small keycard. Behind him, 3 prison gang members waited near a locked steel door. 4 years, nobody suspected him. 4 years, everybody trusted him. Yet at that moment, one terrible truth was about to be exposed. The guard who secretly worked for a prison gang had finally been caught. A voice suddenly echoed from the darkness. "Don't move, Michael." Michael froze. His heart nearly stopped. Someone knew. Someone had discovered everything. The hidden messages. The secret meetings. The missing prison supplies. The favors he had been doing for the gang. Slowly, Michael turned around. A shadow stepped forward. The person raised a flashlight. Michael's eyes widened. It was the last person he ever expected. And that person was holding proof. Proof that could destroy everything. But before Michael could speak, the prison lights suddenly went out. The entire prison fell into darkness. And somewhere nearby, a steel door opened. What happened next would change Blackstone Prison forever. 3 years earlier, Blackstone Prison looked like any other maximum security prison in America. Tall fences surrounded the property. Bright lights shined through the night. Armed officers watched every corner. Inside, prisoners followed strict schedules every day. At least, that was what people believed. Michael Carter had worked there for almost 8 years. Most people liked him. He was polite. He worked hard. He rarely complained. The prison warden often praised him for being dependable. Michael lived alone in a small apartment outside town. He wasn't rich. In fact, he often worried about money. His father had been sick for years. Hospital bills kept growing. Debt followed Michael everywhere. Every month became harder than the last. Still, he tried to do the right thing. Or at least he did at first. One cold morning, Michael was assigned to monitor cell block D. Many dangerous prisoners lived there. Among them was a man named Victor Kane. Victor rarely caused trouble. He spoke softly. He followed prison rules. But everyone knew he controlled the most powerful gang inside Blackstone Prison. Even from behind bars, people listened to him. Even other prisoners feared him. One afternoon, Victor asked to speak with Michael. The request seemed harmless. Prisoners talked to guards all the time. Michael stopped outside Victor's cell. Victor smiled. "You look worried," he said. Michael shrugged. "Just tired." Victor studied him carefully. "Money problems." Michael felt surprised. He said nothing. Victor smiled again. "I can help." Michael immediately shook his head. "No thanks." Victor laughed quietly. "You should think about it." For several weeks, nothing happened. Michael almost forgot the conversation. Then one day he found an envelope sitting on his car seat after work. There was no note, no name, just cash. Thousands of dollars. Michael stared at it for a long time. His hands trembled. He knew exactly where it had come from. The smart choice was obvious. Report it. Tell the warden. Hand it over immediately. Instead, Michael made a mistake. A mistake that would pull him into something far bigger than he could imagine. He kept the money. Days later, another message arrived. This time there was a simple instruction. Deliver a package from one prison workshop to another. Nothing dangerous. Nothing illegal-looking. Just a small box. Michael told himself it was harmless. Just one favor. Just one time. But one favor became 2. 2 became 5. 5 became 10. Before long, Michael was secretly helping Victor Kane's gang move messages throughout the prison. He never asked questions. He didn't want answers. The money kept coming. His debts disappeared. His life improved. But something else was changing too. Someone inside Blackstone Prison had started watching him. Someone had noticed strange things. Missing records. Unlocked doors. prisoners receiving information they should never have known. At first, the clues seemed small. Then they started adding up. One rainy evening, Michael finished his shift and walked toward the parking lot. As he reached his car, he noticed something under the windshield wiper. It was a photograph. Michael picked it up. The color instantly drained from his face. The photo showed him meeting secretly with one of Victor Kane's gang members. Someone had taken the picture. Someone had been watching. Then Michael flipped the photo over. A message was written on the back. It said, "I know what you're doing." And as Michael looked around the empty parking lot, a dark figure stepped out from behind a nearby car. The dark figure stepped forward. Rain tapped against the prison parking lot. Michael Carter felt his stomach twist into knots. The photograph shook in his hand. For a moment, he thought about running. But his legs would not move. The figure stopped a few feet away. A hood covered the person's face. Michael tried to speak. "Who are you?" The stranger said nothing. Instead, the person tossed another photograph onto the ground. Michael picked it up. His heart pounded harder. This picture showed him carrying one of the gang's secret packages through a prison hallway. There was no doubt now. Someone had been watching him for a long time. "What do you want?" Michael asked. The stranger finally spoke. The voice sounded low and calm. "I want you to know that secrets never stay buried." Then the figure turned and walked away into the rain. Michael chased after the stranger. But by the time he reached the street, nobody was there. It was as if the person had vanished. That night, Michael barely slept. Every sound outside his apartment made him nervous. Every passing car made him look through the window. He kept thinking about the photographs. Who had taken them? How much did they know? And why had they not reported him already? The next morning, Blackstone Prison looked the same as always. Prisoners lined up for breakfast. Guards checked doors and hallways. The loudspeaker echoed through the building. But Michael felt different. Every face seemed suspicious. Every glance felt dangerous. During lunch break, he noticed Victor Kane watching him from across the room. Later that day, Victor requested another conversation. Michael stopped outside the cell. Victor smiled. "You look terrible." Michael lowered his voice. "Someone knows." Victor's smile faded. "What do you mean?" Michael explained the photographs. For the first time, Victor looked concerned. "Did you recognize the person?" "No." Victor thought quietly. Then he leaned closer to the bars. "Stay calm. Panic causes mistakes." Michael nodded. But staying calm was becoming impossible. Over the next few days, strange things kept happening. A note appeared inside Michael's locker. It contained only 3 words. "We are watching." The next day, another photograph appeared. Then another. Then another. Each one showed proof of Michael's secret activities. Someone had built a complete record. Someone had gathered enough evidence to destroy his career. Weeks passed. The pressure grew heavier. Michael started making mistakes. He forgot routine checks. He misplaced paperwork. Other guards began noticing his behavior. One of them was guard Ethan Brooks. Ethan had worked at Blackstone for nearly 10 years. He was observant and careful. Unlike many people, Ethan paid attention to small details. One afternoon, Ethan approached Michael in the hallway. "You okay?" Ethan asked. "Yeah." "You don't look okay." "I'm just tired." Ethan nodded but did not seem convinced. As Ethan walked away, Michael felt a chill. Had Ethan noticed something? Or was he simply being friendly? Michael couldn't tell anymore. That evening, Michael received a message from Victor Kane. The gang leader wanted to meet urgently. After final count, Michael found an excuse to pass through cell block D. Victor waited near the bars. His face looked serious. "We have a problem," Victor said. Michael frowned. "What happened?" Victor glanced around before speaking. "Somebody inside the prison has been asking questions." Michael felt his chest tighten. "About me?" "About everything." Victor lowered his voice further. "We think someone is building a case." Michael's mind raced. Who? Victor shook his head. We don't know yet. The answer offered no comfort. For the next several days, tension filled the prison. Gang members whispered to one another. Michael noticed them watching certain guards, watching certain prisoners, searching for the mysterious person collecting evidence. Then something unexpected happened. A prisoner named Daniel Reed requested protective custody. Daniel was not known for causing trouble. He usually kept to himself. But now he seemed terrified. He repeatedly told prison staff that somebody wanted to silence him. Nobody knew exactly what he meant. The situation quickly became one of the most talked about topics inside Blackstone Prison. Michael tried to ignore it. But deep down, he worried. What if Daniel knew something? What if Daniel had seen something? Late one evening, Michael was assigned to a quiet hallway near the prison library. The corridor was nearly empty. Only a few lights remained on. As he walked past a storage room, he heard voices inside. He stopped. Someone was talking. Carefully, he moved closer. The door was slightly open. Michael peeked through the gap. Inside stood Daniel Reed. And standing beside him was someone Michael recognized immediately. Guard Ethan Brooks. Michael's eyes widened. Why was Ethan meeting secretly with Daniel? Before Michael could move, Daniel handed Ethan a thick folder. Ethan opened it. His face became serious. Michael could not see everything inside. But he saw enough. Photographs. Documents. Evidence. A lot of evidence. Suddenly, Daniel looked toward the door. His eyes met Michael's. For a split second, nobody moved. Then Daniel's face filled with fear. The prisoner pointed directly at Michael. And Ethan turned around. The folder slipped from Ethan's hands. Papers scattered across the floor. One photograph slid into the hallway. Michael stared at it. It was another picture of him working for Victor Kane's prison gang. And this time, there were dozens more lying inside the folder. The photograph lay on the hallway floor. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Michael Carter stared at it. Ethan Brooks stared at him. Daniel Reed looked ready to faint. The scattered papers covered the storage room floor like fallen leaves. Every page seemed to contain another piece of evidence. Another secret. Another mistake Michael had made. His mind raced. There was only one question now. How much did Ethan know? Ethan slowly stepped into the hallway. His face was calm, but his eyes were serious. "Michael," he said quietly. Michael swallowed hard. Neither man looked away. The prison corridor suddenly felt smaller, colder, more dangerous. Then Ethan spoke again. "We need to talk." Michael knew there was no point pretending anymore. Not after what he had just seen. Not after the photographs. Not after the folder. But before either man could continue, a loud alarm suddenly echoed through the prison. The sound blasted through every hallway. Both guards turned immediately. A voice came over the loudspeaker. "Security alert. Security alert. All available staff report to Cell Block D." Ethan frowned. Michael felt a chill run through him. Cell Block D. Victor Kane's block. Something was happening. The conversation would have to wait. Both guards rushed toward the disturbance. As they ran through the prison, inmates shouted from behind locked doors. Guards hurried in every direction. Nobody seemed to know exactly what was wrong. When Michael finally reached Cell Block D, he saw a crowd of officers gathered near one of the cells. The atmosphere was tense. Prison staff were speaking into radios. Others were searching nearby areas. Michael pushed through the crowd. "What happened?" A lieutenant answered. "An inmate is missing." Michael froze. "What?" The lieutenant nodded. "A prisoner somehow disappeared during evening count." Michael's stomach dropped. Prisoners did not simply disappear. Especially not inside a maximum security prison. The missing inmate was not Victor Kane. But he was one of Victor's trusted gang members. The news spread quickly. Within hours, every section of Blackstone Prison was under investigation. Cells were searched. Storage rooms were checked. Security footage was reviewed. Michael tried to focus on his job, but his thoughts kept returning to Ethan, to the folder, to the evidence. Several hours later, the missing prisoner was found, hidden inside an unused maintenance area, still inside the prison. The crisis ended almost as suddenly as it had begun, but the strange event created new problems. Questions were being asked. Serious questions. How had the inmate reached that area? Who helped him get there? Who unlocked the doors? The answers were not immediately clear. The next morning, Michael arrived at work feeling exhausted. He had barely slept. Every hour seemed to bring new trouble. As he entered the staff parking lot, he noticed Ethan standing beside his vehicle, waiting. Michael's heart sank. The conversation could no longer be avoided. Ethan walked over. "We need privacy." Neither man spoke again until they reached an empty office inside the administration building. The room was small. A single desk sat against the wall. Ethan closed the door. Then he placed a folder on the table. The same folder. Michael immediately recognized it. For several moments, silence filled the room. Finally, Ethan spoke. "How long?" Michael looked down. He did not answer. "How long have you been helping them?" The question hung in the air. Michael felt trapped. Every excuse sounded useless. Every lie seemed pointless. "About 3 years," he admitted quietly. Ethan closed his eyes. The answer clearly disappointed him. "Why?" Michael thought about the hospital bills, the debt, the money, the pressure. It started small. Ethan shook his head. "It always starts small." Michael could not argue with that. For the next hour, they talked. Or rather, Ethan asked questions while Michael gave careful answers. Yet something felt strange. Ethan did not seem angry. He did not immediately report him. He did not call prison investigators. Instead, he seemed focused on something else. Something bigger. Finally, Ethan opened the folder. Inside were photographs, notes, schedules, and copies of prison records. Michael stared at them. The collection was enormous, far larger than he imagined. "This isn't just about you," Ethan said. "What do you mean?" Ethan pointed toward several documents. Michael looked closer. His eyes widened. Some of the records mentioned other employees, other guards, other staff members. Names he recognized. Names he worked with every day. Michael looked up. "You think more people are involved?" Ethan nodded. "I know they are." The room suddenly felt silent. Michael had always believed he was acting alone, that he was the gang's only insider. Now he wasn't so sure. Ethan leaned forward. "Someone inside this prison is helping Victor Kane run a much bigger operation." Michael felt a knot form in his stomach. "A guard? Maybe. Who?" Ethan shook his head. "I haven't figured it out yet." For the first time, Michael realized something frightening. The mysterious person collecting evidence had never been trying to expose only him. They had been investigating something much larger. Something hidden deep inside Blackstone Prison. Over the next few days, Michael secretly helped Ethan review information. He knew he had done wrong, but part of him wanted to make things right. Maybe it was too late. Maybe not. Together, they searched through reports and schedules. Patterns slowly appeared. Certain doors opened at unusual times. Certain cameras mysteriously malfunctioned. Certain prisoners received special treatment. And every clue seemed connected to Victor Kane. Then, late one evening, Ethan discovered something shocking. A prison shipment record. At first it looked ordinary. But one number caught his attention. A storage unit number. Michael immediately recognized it. Nobody had used that storage unit in years. At least that was what everyone believed. The next night, Ethan and Michael decided to inspect it. After their shifts ended, they quietly entered an abandoned section of the prison. Dust covered the floors. Old equipment lined the walls. The area felt forgotten. Eventually, they reached the storage unit. A heavy steel door blocked the entrance. According to official records, it should have been empty. Ethan unlocked the door. The hinges groaned as it slowly opened. Michael switched on a flashlight. The beam swept across the darkness. Then both men froze. The room was not empty. Far from it. Inside were stacks of hidden boxes. Dozens of them. And painted across one wall was a symbol used by Victor Kane's prison gang. But that wasn't what terrified Michael most. Because standing in the center of the room was a prison guard. A guard who should not have been there. The guard slowly turned around. And Michael recognized the face immediately. The guard standing inside the hidden storage room stared directly at Michael and Ethan. For a moment, nobody spoke. The dusty room felt completely silent. Michael's flashlight trembled in his hand. His heart pounded so loudly that he could hear it. Then the guard stepped forward. Michael's eyes widened. It was Lieutenant Robert Hayes, one of the most respected officers in Blackstone Prison. 4 years, prison staff had trusted him. He supervised security teams. He trained younger guards. The warden often praised his work. Nobody would ever expect him to be standing inside a secret room connected to Victor Kane's gang. Robert looked calm. Almost too calm. His eyes moved from Michael to Ethan. Then he smiled slightly. "I was wondering when someone would find this place." Ethan tightened his grip on his flashlight. "You've got some explaining to do." Robert glanced around the room. "You already know enough." The hidden boxes sat stacked behind him. Every one of them represented another mystery. Another secret hidden inside the prison. Michael suddenly understood something. This operation was much bigger than he had imagined. Much bigger than a few secret messages. Much bigger than the money he had accepted years ago. Robert folded his arms. "You're looking at this the wrong way." Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" Robert sighed. "4 years, I've been tracking Victor Kane." The statement surprised both men. Michael blinked. "What? I'm not working for him." Ethan's expression hardened. "Then why are you here?" Robert pointed toward the boxes. "Because this room contains evidence." The answer sounded reasonable. Yet something still felt wrong. Michael noticed sweat forming on Robert's forehead. His voice remained steady, but his eyes looked nervous. As if he were hiding something. Ethan seemed to notice it too. "Open the boxes." Robert hesitated. Only for a second. But it was enough. The hesitation said more than words. Ethan took a step forward. "Open them." Slowly, Robert walked toward the nearest box. He lifted the lid. Michael aimed his flashlight inside. The contents immediately raised more questions. Folders. Documents. Photographs. Records. Hundreds of pages. The box looked like part of a giant investigation. Ethan opened another. More documents. Another box contained old prison schedules. Another held maintenance reports. The collection appeared enormous. Years of information sat hidden inside the room. Michael felt confused. Nothing looked like gang property. Nothing looked criminal. Everything looked like evidence. Yet something still felt wrong. Then Ethan found it. A small notebook hidden beneath several folders. He opened it carefully. The first page contained names. Dozens of names. Prison staff. Prisoners. Dates. Notes. Transactions. Michael felt his stomach tighten. Several entries included his own name. Ethan continued reading. The further he went, the more serious his expression became. Finally, he looked up. "This isn't an investigation notebook." Robert remained silent. Ethan slowly turned another page. "It records favors." Silence. Another page. "It records payments." More silence. Then Ethan reached the final pages. His eyes widened. Michael knew immediately that something was wrong. Very wrong. "What is it?" Michael asked. Ethan looked directly at Robert. The room suddenly felt colder. The notebook lists every person helping Victor Kane. Michael's mouth went dry. Robert still said nothing. Ethan held up the notebook. and your name appears more than anyone else's. The truth finally hung in the air. Heavy. Impossible to ignore. Robert Hayes was involved. Maybe deeply involved. Maybe even more deeply than Michael. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Robert laughed softly. The sound echoed through the room. Michael felt a chill. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone whose secret had finally been uncovered. "I hoped you wouldn't find that notebook," Robert said. Ethan stepped backward slightly. "How long?" Robert smiled sadly. "A long time." Michael couldn't believe it. For years he thought Victor Kane trusted him. Now he realized he had never been important. He had only been one small piece of something much larger. Robert looked toward the hidden boxes. Victor built connections everywhere. His voice sounded tired. People underestimate what power can do. Ethan pulled out his radio. The movement changed everything. Robert immediately noticed. His eyes narrowed. The room became tense. Very tense. Ethan raised the radio. "Control, this is Brooks. I need." Suddenly the lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the room. Michael heard someone move. Fast. Very fast. A loud crash followed. Boxes toppled across the floor. Papers flew through the air. Someone shouted. Michael stumbled backward. His flashlight slipped from his hand. The beam spun wildly across the room. For one brief second, the light illuminated Robert Hayes. He was running. Not toward the door. Toward the back wall. Then the flashlight rolled away. Darkness returned. Another crash echoed through the room. Michael heard metal scraping. A hidden door. Somewhere behind the storage shelves. "Ethan!" Michael shouted. "I'm here." "He's escaping." Michael dropped to his knees, searching desperately for the flashlight. His fingers finally found it. He switched it on. The beam cut through the darkness. The hidden storage room looked completely different now. Several shelves had shifted aside. Behind them stood a secret passage. A passage nobody knew existed. Robert Hayes was gone. The notebook was gone too. And fresh footprints disappeared into the darkness beyond. Ethan stared at the hidden tunnel. His face was pale. Michael felt the same shock. How many secrets had been buried beneath Blackstone Prison? How many years had this tunnel existed? Then Michael pointed his flashlight deeper into the passage. Something was hanging on the wall just inside the entrance. A photograph. Recently placed. Almost as if someone wanted them to find it. Ethan carefully removed it. The moment he saw the image, all color drained from his face. Michael looked over his shoulder. His heart nearly stopped. Because the photograph showed something impossible. It showed a meeting between Victor Kane and a prison guard. A meeting that had happened only 2 days earlier. And the guard in the picture was not Robert Hayes. It was someone far more powerful. The photograph shook in Ethan Brooks' hands. Michael Carter stared at it. Neither man could believe what they were seeing. The guard standing beside Victor Kane was not Robert Hayes. It was Warden James Walker, the highest-ranking person in Blackstone Prison. 4 years, he had been the face of order and discipline. He spoke at community events. He appeared in local news reports. He constantly promised that Blackstone Prison was one of the safest prisons in the state. And now there was a photograph showing him secretly meeting with the prison gang leader. The tunnel suddenly felt colder. Much colder. Ethan looked at Michael. "We need to get out of here." Michael nodded. The evidence was too important. If they lost it, the truth might never come out. The two men hurried back through the prison. Neither of them spoke much. Their minds were racing. Everything finally made sense. The missing records. The broken cameras. The unlocked doors. The special treatment some prisoners received. Someone powerful had been protecting Victor Kane. And that someone appeared to be the warden himself. The next morning, Ethan contacted state prison investigators. He did not trust anyone inside Blackstone Prison anymore. The risk was too great. A small team of outside investigators arrived quietly. They reviewed the photographs. They reviewed the documents from the hidden storage room. They listened carefully as Ethan and Michael explained everything. The investigators took the evidence seriously. Very seriously. Within days, a secret investigation began. The prison continued operating normally on the surface. Most guards knew nothing. Most prisoners knew nothing. But behind the scenes, investigators were watching. Watching the staff. Watching prison records. Watching Victor Kane. Watching Warden Walker. As the investigation continued, more evidence appeared. Financial records showed suspicious payments. Security logs revealed unusual activity. Witnesses began speaking to investigators. One by one, the pieces started fitting together. The hidden operation was finally being exposed. Meanwhile, Victor Kane seemed unusually calm. Almost as if he knew something was coming. Michael noticed it immediately. Every time he passed Victor's cell, the gang leader appeared relaxed. Confident. That confidence worried him. Then came the biggest breakthrough. Investigators discovered that Robert Hayes had secretly recorded conversations. For years, he had saved information. Some of it was hidden inside the storage room. Some of it was hidden elsewhere. The recordings revealed the truth. Robert Hayes had started working with Victor Kane years earlier. At first, he accepted small favors. Then he became trapped. The deeper he went, the harder it became to leave. Eventually, he began secretly collecting evidence against the operation. He wanted a way out. He wanted protection if everything collapsed. That was why the storage room existed. That was why he kept records. That was why he panicked when Ethan found the notebook. The recordings also revealed something even more important. Victor Kane's gang was not controlling the prison. The gang and certain corrupt staff members were helping each other. Both sides benefited. Both sides protected one another. And at the center of everything was Warden James Walker. The evidence became impossible to ignore. One morning, state investigators entered Blackstone Prison with official warrants. Staff members watched nervously. Prisoners whispered through cell bars. Nobody knew exactly what was happening. Then investigators walked straight into the administration building. Minutes later, Warden Walker was escorted out. The prison yard fell silent. People watched from windows. Others watched from hallways. The man who had seemed untouchable was finally facing consequences. Over the following weeks, additional arrests were made. Several staff members lost their jobs. Others faced criminal investigations. Victor Kane was transferred to a different maximum security prison where communication was heavily restricted. The hidden tunnel was sealed. The storage room was emptied. New security measures were introduced throughout Blackstone Prison. For the first time in years, the prison began moving toward real accountability. Michael Carter also faced consequences. He admitted his role in helping the gang. He cooperated with investigators and told them everything he knew. He did not escape responsibility. He understood that his choices had helped create the problem. One bad decision had led to another. Then another. And another. The lesson stayed with him forever. Months later, Blackstone Prison looked different. The atmosphere had changed. The fear and rumors that once filled the hallways had slowly faded. New leadership took over. New procedures were introduced. Trust would take time to rebuild. But progress had begun. One afternoon, Ethan stood near the prison yard fence. Michael joined him. For a moment, neither man spoke. They simply looked across the prison grounds. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "Did you ever imagine it would end like this?" Michael shook his head. "No." Ethan nodded. "Neither did I." The wind moved softly through the yard. The prison towers stood quietly in the distance. For the first time in a long while, there were more answers than questions. The guard who secretly worked for a prison gang had been exposed. The corrupt network hidden inside Blackstone Prison had been uncovered. The powerful people behind it had been held accountable. And the secrets buried beneath the prison walls had finally come into the light. The story of Blackstone Prison would be remembered for years, not because of the gang, the tunnel, or the corruption, but because the truth eventually won. No matter how carefully a secret is hidden, it rarely stays hidden forever.